Welcome to the Founders Lounge, where business meets bullshit and everything in between. What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Founders Lounge. We have a special knuckle dragon guest today. That's
Amen to that.
I stole that terminology from you, by the way.
Yeah.
The guy that is now overseeing all of the operations for Clean Eatz. Mr.
Nice.
Quinn Newhall, how you doing, man?
I'm good. Thanks for inviting me.
Welcome,
Is
Quinn.
this your first podcast?
Yeah, ever? I did one other one on a old athletes thing from my high school where they asked me to come speak, but other than that, this is number 2.
Well, this one's going to be a treat.
Yeah, you're gonna love this. You're in good hands.
I hope so.
Nah, it's
So we've had a ton of guests on the show. I kind of wanted we did an episode maybe a month ago on emerging brands struggling to find executive level talent.
Yeah.
We had Jonathan on here. He had an amazing perspective on it because he was a CEO of a local brand here, local franchise. And so I was like, all right, I know Quinn. Quinn will come on here and give a real perspective on it too. And it's kind of personal. It's kind of close because now you're, family with us. So, but before we get into all that, let's talk about background, career path, like your journey into the restaurant industry, early roles that kind of shaped you to kind of do what you're doing now, and then ultimately what landed you in our building.
I'm a Cincinnati kid, born and raised.
nice.
I was just smart enough to get into the Air Force Academy. So I played football out there. That's really what got me in. Other than that, my dumb ass shouldn't have been there. But made it through the 4 years, served 8 years in the Air Force. And wanted to fly, but senior year they found a cataract in my right eye, which was one of those first setbacks. But from that, right, I do believe there's a reason things happen, and as a result of that, I went into weapon system development acquisition. So I developed the AMRAAM missile, which was in contracting. So I worked with Hughes Aircraft, I worked with Raytheon. And here I was as a young lieutenant sitting across negotiating a $320 million contract. And I thought, how in the heck am I here? Right.
That's imposter syndrome if I've ever heard it.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. But what happens, and it's like, it's similar with organizations, right? There's a lot of young talent and then there's a lot of older talent, but in between trying to find great talent, a lot of people at the 4-year point leave the Air Force. So there's this void. And so that's how a first lieutenant is sitting here negotiating the contract. Anyway, fast forward. I knew at the end of 8 years, I worked for, I was an XO, an executive officer for a 3-star general. And I got to see what his career looked like at the end of 30 years and was like, God bless you, sir. You're an incredible man, but that's not for me. I was a busboy and a grill cook in high school. So when I went to get out of the Air Force, I went to a headhunter conference in Chicago, not knowing what I wanted to do. At the end of the day, I had offers from Kraft. I had one from Abbott Labs and Pfizer and PepsiCo. And PepsiCo at the time owned Pizza Hut, Taco Bell, KFC. And I thought, I don't know anything about pharmaceuticals. I don't want to do anything with cheese, being the Kraft. And so I decided, you know what? I liked restaurants when I was working in high school. Let's give it a run. And so my moniker was, I quit working for the general and I went to work for the colonel. So I worked for KFC.
That's awesome.
And so for a year, I ran a restaurant in Dayton, Ohio. And then the area manager quit. And so they said, hey, you're the guy. I had no clue what I was doing other than the leadership training I had received in the Air Force. I didn't know anything about, multi-unit restaurant stuff. I will share the story. I had a great leader who was my director of operations named Alwyn Lewis, who went on to be the CEO at Pot Valley. But at the time, just a director. And we rode the first time visiting restaurants, and we got back that day. And it was so amazing because we're sitting in the car outside my house. That's where we met. And he goes, restaurants look great. My head's getting big. He's like, food, best I've seen. Head's getting bigger. He said, people, excellent people. Whew, now I'm like, I am the guy. And he looks over at me and he says, is that all you got? And I was like, sir, whew, head deflated. And he goes, I expect it. Air Force guy, got his master's degree. I expect the restaurants to look good and be in spec. And he said, show me what you got. Training wheels are off. And he got out of the car. And I was like, what was he just telling me? And that was kind of a wake-up call because I found myself in the multi-unit position. By the way, I think in the Air Force or in the restaurant business is the least trained there is. We typically take managers who are great performers, give them the keys to the kingdom, and say, "Go do it." And they rely back on the way they muscled and sweat through to make their restaurant great, and try and apply that at a multi-unit level. It doesn't work. So I went back and said, okay, what is it you're doing every day? Well, you pull up to a restaurant and you sit there going, okay, why am I here? That's step number one, that there's a problem, right? When you're asking yourself, why are you at a particular restaurant? And so I started thinking about, okay, what are the things that are going to make these people better leaders? And so I started a thing called the Period Business Review. And in that, it was they would stand up and present their P&Ls, analyze their P&Ls, and then present them in a group, which was very supportive. It wasn't like, hey, your labor's horrible. Yeah. Why are you here? It was, hey, who can help him or help her? And the first step was teaching the P&L. I'll never forget that first meeting. They sat up there and they were presenting their P&Ls. And the guy standing there, Marshall, I'll never forget Marshall. And he goes, well, my COGS are 32. And I go, what is a COG? He goes, I have no idea. But whatever it is, it's really expensive. Read the spreadsheet. He goes, it's expensive. And I said, how many of you guys don't know a P&L? And they're all of them, right? So the next Monday we met, and I had a course on teaching them how to read a P&L. And so from that course, everybody goes, there's two reasons for that. One, it makes them better people, right? And I told them, I said, whether you stay with me or you move on, this is something, I don't care if you can go sell tires, right? A P&L is the same. The way you read it's the same, semi-variable, variable, fixed costs, all that stuff that we're talking about, EBITDA, EBITDAR, all those terms that the guys with the green shades like to make us knuckle draggers feel stupid, you're going to learn and you can take it with you. The second case, and I call it Tom Sawyer. If you read the story on Tom Sawyer, he was painting the fence and he was hating it, right? So what did he do? He made it look like fun. And pretty soon people were coming by going, hey, can I do that? And he's like, sure. Can I do that? Yeah. Next thing you know, he's sitting back while they're painting the fence. Right. I didn't want to go through 15. I had 15 stores, and I didn't want to go through 15 P&Ls every month and have me analyze and tell them where their problems were. I wanted them to analyze that, right? And become business people and understand where their opportunity lied in their restaurant and creating ownership. So that was probably one of the greatest experiences. So fast forward to Don's real question, you'll find, I'm a storyteller.
You're good. We love it.
From there, I got promoted into ops services in headquarters in Louisville. Did that for about 6 months. And then poof, they're like, you're now the director of operations for the state of Florida. Mm-hmm. So I had 155 restaurants, 8 area managers. And that was really the first test, right? Because you're working with another group of people. I don't know. Thank you.
This is one of our operators right now, probably.
It's another operator. Someone who used to work for me. That was a real challenge because now it's the next level. These folks, first of all, it was in the state of Florida. I had from Homestead all the way down to Miami, up to Jacksonville, everything but the Panhandle. And the guys down in Florida were all Cuban guys, right? And they loved messing with the gringo. I mean, they would take me to places and feed me stuff. And I was like, okay, you guys, it was a great experience. Yeah. Then my first opportunity to work for an entrepreneur, Joe Croce, who founded Cece's Pizza. Our head of marketing left, and he called me and said, you got to get a load of this. This is crazy. He said, man, the growth is unbelievable. The culture is really, what I hope the restaurant business would be about, which is about taking care of your guests, right?
Yeah.
And so this was the first time I saw this passion in an owner that was just crazy. He had a jump the counter mentality, right?
That's cool.
Did that for a number of years. And then my son came to me when he was 7 and said, are you ever going to see one of my games? And I realized I was a great provider, not really a great dad. So I became a franchisee. So for the next 16 years, I was a franchisee, started with 1 store, grew it to 3 locations, and then ultimately took over a franchise group in Colorado. So pack up the family like the Beverly Hillbillies, and we move out to Evergreen, Colorado. We had 12 stores out there, did that, like I say, for 16 years. I still have my stores in Texas, so that's why the overlap. People see my resume and they're like, well, how did you do this and that? I'm like, well, and the problem was Cece's had gone through a rough time, and the franchisees were in revolt. And because of my experience, because of the time, and because of my relationships, really, I went back and helped them calm the waters. Had a great CEO, Darren Harris. He ended up leaving and going to be the CEO out at Jack in the Box. But one of the smartest guys I've met, taught me a lot, just the way to look at things and the way you prioritize projects. Then when he left, a new guy came in, and I could tell that our values were not going to match. So I looked, and that led me back to Cincinnati. Skyline Chili. For those who don't know, Skyline Chili is, Don hates it.
It's a staple.
It's
It's a staple.
He hates it. It's a staple.
It
See that,
is,
Don?
yeah.
It's a staple.
Do you like it?
It's an acquired.
It's an
But I
acquired.
grew up
It
in
is.
Pittsburgh. Don't hate me.
Mm.
So I was close.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
No, it's
keep
funny.
going, Quinn. You're doing the good stuff. But
So went there, had a great experience. Kevin McDonald, my second person working for, is the owner of a concept, and learned a lot because Kevin's a very quiet guy. He's a finance guy.
Yep.
And I kind of attract more to, more gregarious, going. But from him, I learned what quiet leadership could be like, and learned a lot of great leadership skills from him. And I don't know what it is. Wherever I go, I must run people off, so I hope I don't run you off. He decides to sell. So a new family came in, great family, the Williams family, but I really wanted to run a company. And so I had an opportunity to go to Charlie's Cheesesteaks in Columbus, 832 restaurants, 17 states or 17 countries, and 45 states. Big job. And I was there as the COO. Which in their place, that's the president, the way they're organized.
the way they're structured.
Yeah. Did that for 10 months. I really enjoyed the experience. And then I was faced with 3 weddings the next summer, if you will, before joining these guys. And I could hear my son's voice, are you ever going to see one of my games? And I thought, are you going to be at my wedding? And so I was, and I did. And I also had a little bout with melanoma, got that all taken care of. And lo and behold, the opportunity came to join Clean Eatz. Hearing the story, I love the story. And there was a point where I thought maybe it's time just to retire and sit on the sidelines. I knew it was time to go back to work when my wife got me a woodworking kit and said it's time for arts and crafts. I thought, holy crap, I'm already in a home.
Arts and crafts.
Yeah, arts and crafts.
It's 2:00.
Oh, it's like, time for arts and crafts, Quinn. And I thought, holy moly, I'm in an old folks home and I'm
That's
not even
great.
there yet, right?
Yeah.
If you get it done on time, you can take a nap.
You can take a nap, yeah.
That's
and
great.
oh, by the way, Wheel of Fortune's on at 5. So I realized, I was driving her crazy. I was driving myself crazy, and I wasn't going to sit on the sidelines. I am that guy. My tombstone will say he worked and then he died. And everybody goes, oh, that's horrible. It's not horrible if that's what you love doing. Right. And I do. I love it. I love impacting people. I like showing what's possible. And their story, when I heard their story, it was amazing. And during the interview, I have to share this because this is what's amazing. The first time we're on a Zoom call, right? And Don's very soft-spoken. He'll do a lot of...
Yeah, keeps you wondering, contemplating.
And for me, that's uncomfortable, right?
Yeah.
Silence is difficult for me.
Right.
So we're on a Zoom call. Yvonne's in her office, Don, so there's 2 screens. I'm like, okay, so they're not in the same room. All right, this is good. And I say, hi, Don, nice to meet you. He's like, nice to meet you. Nice to meet you. And then Yvonne, hi, nice to meet you. And immediately I go, okay, so I guess I'll start. And then I just go off, right? And then we were talking about, Don said, hey, what about the multi-unit FBC role? What do you think about that? And I said, well, and I reached for this manual.
Yeah.
And I said, this is the manual, and I'm holding it up for for him to see. And I go, it's the most undertrained position there is, that whole thing about a manager, and we promote them. And I said, this really lays out the way you should consult with franchisees, right? And to get them to take ownership for their restaurant, right? And realize I have this rule that is kind of like the 80-20. There are things you can impact and things you can't. And the things you can't, I put in a pile when I meet with franchisees, and I say, those are on me to take back and try and help, because they're always about marketing. I don't get anything out of marketing.
Yeah.
Nobody replies to me on this. Blah, blah, blah. All the things that cast the responsibility elsewhere. And then I say, that's great, but you can't do anything about that. So there's no sense wasting time on that. let's talk about the things we can impact and what's possible, right?
Right.
And taking away the barriers, because I think sometimes people, especially in this business, a lot of people get into franchising thinking you turn the key and the money will come. And in the restaurant business, of all businesses, I've never known any restaurant concept that's like that.
We
right?
just spoke about this on the episode prior. Yeah.
Yeah. So
there's a misconception though.
Yeah.
That
it's easy. Well, they watch Cheers and they think, hey, the beer's always flowing. Nobody
Right.
ever complains and no equipment ever breaks.
It's part of our culture. It's part of our pop culture, you're right.
It is, right? So anyway, I held up that book and Don goes, I think I know who helped you with that. And sure as heck, he knew who it was. And I'm like, oh my God. And he goes, he's here right now training the FBCs on that program. And I said, well, tell him I said hi. And I go, hell, I'll just text him, right? So I text Kevin and I go, hey, tell Don and Yvonne I said hi. He goes, what are you doing? I said, I'm interviewing with them, right? And then, Yvonne tells me about her story and her brush with melanoma. And I'm looking at the big guy going, FBC, same guy, melanoma. Okay, there's 2 points. So we get off the phone and I'm like, okay, I think it went well. About 2 days later, I get a call, says from the headhunter. He's like, hey, they want you to interview with one of the board members. And I go, okay, who? And they go, Kyle Smith. And I said, Kyle Smith is in Nothing But Cakes, Kyle Smith? And they go, you know him? I go, we used to work together at Cece's. I know him.
That's great.
Yeah. So now there's number 3,
yeah.
right? And so I interviewed with Kyle. We had a great conversation. He was like, hey, thumbs up, dude. And then he was like, hey, one thing I will tell you. And he goes, maybe tone down the enthusiasm a little bit. And I go, I said, sorry, man. I said, he goes, you may come across a little strong. I said, well, I can't help it. That's my personality, right? But lo and behold, I joined them. And it's been great. Their story is perfect for where I am in this juncture in my life. I mean, I'm the godfather of the organization. I mean, I'm the oldest dude in there.
Kiss the
right?
ring.
Oh yeah. And so their story is perfect because, there's a point in life where it's all about me. Then there's a point in life where you're in the struggling thing. And then when you get older and wiser, you realize it has nothing to do with you. You will be successful if you make your people successful. And so your give back, I'm in that give back period, right? And I like to think I've been in that for the last 10 years, right? With the teams that I've built, matter of fact, Jody James, who just called, she was on one of the teams, right? And I just think with them, my goal is to get them to whatever their desires and goals are. And along the way, I really love being out in the field. My worst days, this last couple of weeks, I've been here because we got convention coming up. And I get home and Cheryl's like, man, you're in a foul mood. I'm like, Cheryl, I got to get back out there.
You want to see how it's all being done.
Oh, well, just the impact on people's lives, right? Yeah. I mean, I will tell you, and Don can talk more to this, and this is a little bit of that, but when I leave restaurants, right, I always have this statement I ask people, I said, you make people smile. And they go, oh, yeah. And I go, well, is it when you enter or when you leave? And I said, because you hope they're smiling when they see you, not like, oh, thank God he left, right? And so, that adage of trying to make situations, everyone you come into contact with, better than you found it, has just been a guiding doctrine, for me. And the people's lives you truly can impact, right? And I don't hold back. I mean, they got a letter from one guy that said, hey, Quinn gave me a true dose of reality today.
Good. And
he said, I got to tell you this. He said, it was harsh to hear, but I know it was coming from a good place. And he just said, hey, thanks for hiring him and all that kind of stuff. That keeps me more motivated, right? Because there's a way to deliver feedback in a way that makes people feel good about you being there, right? And so long-winded, I know, sorry, whoever's listening, but that's what guides me. No,
it's perfect.
That's great. Intro.
I mean, I'll allude to some of the things that you said. I'll kind of point a light on them. So you were joking about my demeanor and quiet and kind of just sitting back. And we were talking about this on the show with Hanse that's going to drop here soon. And, one of the things we were talking about is sometimes that comes across intimidating, and you've been in many meetings with us already. And I'm always kind of like the last one to speak. I don't really say much. I don't really And it's not because I'm doing that on purpose. Like, I'm not trying to sit there and be the intimidating guy in the room. Quite frankly, I just process information slower than most people. That's honestly what it is. And I'm not joking. I'm not trying to be funny. It just is. So like, there's a lot of people that can think really quick on their feet and they can make really quick judgment calls. I've never been one of those guys. Mm. So like in our ops meetings and things where you're talking about certain things, I got to sit there and go, okay, let me process this for a minute and think about this. And then at the end, I'll give my 2 cents or whatever it is. And that always comes across as, and he's intimidating or he's pissed off. And it's not really, I'm just thinking. I've always had to process information like that. And to be honest with you, the best thing that I love about having you, especially in the role that you're in, overseeing all of the operations with Clean Eatz, is we are polar opposites. Mm-hmm. Your personality and the way that you can go and connect with these people, especially, and I'm underlining that 8 times, the ones that I've had an issue with connecting with as an owner, as a founder, you and Aaron and some of the like great talent that you brought in the short time you've been here, has been able to do that. You've been able to find that connection. And I'm like, most people would be like, well, what the fuck, man? What did I do? You know, right. they would always get kind of angry about it. And me, I'm the opposite. I'm like, that's fucking awesome. That's great. Like, I don't know how you did it, but have at it, bud. Like, you guys were able to connect with them that clicked. Now, to be honest with you, there are times where I'll step back and go, all right, what's the lesson I got to learn here from this? If him and Aaron were able to connect with these few owners and I haven't been able to do that, that means I did something wrong or I'm not figuring that out. And the beauty of it is all the time, I don't have to. I mean, quite frankly, as long as I'm fulfilling my obligation to you guys and to them, I don't have to be their go-to. And it's
but in fairness too, you got a bunch of other things that you are in charge of, right? And so, that's part of, the role, right? Is to come in and be able to do those things and, build those connections, because you got a ton of stuff on your plate. So,
yeah. And, we see it with other groups too. And you've seen it where there's, the owner is the operator, is the mom and dad. You and Yvonne have been amazing. But you're so close that having someone like Quinn, who's almost an advocate for the franchisee, but also the franchisor, and that conduit of reasonable versus we've been doing the same circle for 5 years and neither of us see eye to eye. Like, that's a level that franchises get to. Clearly Clean Eatz, but it's nice to see you guys getting to focus on the bigger things.
So a lot of people don't really, a lot of our listeners don't understand kind of the inner workings of I'll call it a support system or like a corporate office of a business, much less a restaurant chain. So I want to talk about day in the life of what it is to run an operations department, balancing corporate vision with day to day, some of those challenges, and then kind of how you personally, I know it because I'm there with you, but how you specifically bridge communication between franchisees and operators. I know a lot of it is, like those.
Did you bring your cat?
Breakfast?
You have a cat.
No breakfast. You know me.
It's growling, man.
Coffee.
Mine's going to do it too soon.
But some of those tactics that you were just talking about, how do you implement those, and just talk about that for a minute, like a day in the life kind of thing of what that role is like.
Yeah, I think
whether it's with us or anybody else.
Yeah, I think the first step, right, is hiring great people. That is step one. And when somebody isn't performing at the level I wish they would be at, I always ask myself, is it that they don't have the tools to succeed, or do they not know what they're supposed to be doing, right? So always finding out why is it they're not performing. Because I don't think anybody, well, there are some people I've met, but most people I don't think wake up every day and go, let me see how crappy I can be, right? The reason is they either don't know what they're supposed to be doing, or they don't have the skill set, or they haven't been trained in that. If they don't have the skill set, I'm a big believer in finding a place for people. Everybody is good at something. So there are people in the past that I've let go that I always commit 2 months to helping them find a place where I think they will be successful. That's just part of my moral conscience, is that I haven't met anybody, well, that's not fair. most people that I've worked with, I have always liked, and I want to help them land right in a good spot. So that's number one. Hire great people. And then over time, you build trust. The foundation of leadership is trust. People will not share their vulnerabilities, their areas where they need to improve, until they can trust you with their career. And they know you're not out to hurt them, right? And that takes some time, because through your actions, through your words, right? Through your words and then following up with your actions, that builds trust. And then you get to the core of the person, and that's when they'll go. It was funny. I was one time doing this period business review, and I let it off with this monologue, right? And I specifically used a word. It is not a word. It was made up. It was like Finkelschnaup or something, right?
And people, oh yeah, I've heard of that.
I used it the whole time during the meeting, and they're nodding their heads. And finally, at the end of the thing, one person, I said, so any questions? And this one person, God bless him, raised his hand, and he said, at the risk of sounding stupid, I don't know what that word means. And I said, what? And he goes, Finkelschnaup, or whatever you were using. I'm like, it's not a word. I was waiting to see who in here had the courage and the confidence to ask me about that. And I go, congratulations. And I said, the rest of you all nodding your head. I'm like, guys, we have got to have a culture, right, where you can raise your hand when you don't know something. That's the only way we'll get better. So that's the thing. Trust is the foundation. Then with the franchisees, sometimes in the franchisee-franchisor relationship, right, it can be a very, gruesome thing.
Yeah.
Right?
It's just not in agreement.
No, because
Well, and, and we're going to do this presentation. Kevin Hogan is going to do this presentation that really talks about the foundation of the rub, right? And when our franchisees hear it, they'll go, wow. Because a lot of times people go, well, that's not what I was told when I got this franchise, right?
Yeah.
And so breaking through that piece to go, I don't know what you're told, right? But you're here now. And so let's focus on what we can control and not worry about the past, right? Let's talk about going forward. So hiring great people, understanding that there is a friction there, and having your FBCs or whoever your multi-unit people are, understand that. And go in, right? First thing you should always do is listen, right? So that's the one thing I tell FBCs when you go in, let them throw up. Boom, here's the issues. And there's valid points in there, regardless of whether they have factual basis. It is their perspective. It is their perception.
It's their reality.
It's their reality.
Yeah.
And so those things need to be dealt with. So that's what I put in that bucket. I'll take that back with me, right? Some of them you can handle right there. I met with a franchisee on one of these trips, and, the FBC, I told him too, you got to be courageous as an FBC, and be direct. It doesn't do anybody any good. And so this one franchisee, everybody was around the office saying, well, so-and-so, great guy, but lately he's been kind of, frosty. And so I went and met with them, and I sat down and said, hey, just met you, blah, 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 blah. And I always start off with a little background. They introduced themselves on this first round ago, and I go, hey, at the risk of being bold here, I've heard you're a great guy, but you've been a little frosty lately. Yeah. And he's like, I go, what's going on? Let's talk about it. And he goes, okay. And he pulls out this sheet of paper, and he had like 10 things on there. And we went through them, and I'm like, here's what's happening on that. Here's what's happening on that. And what you find in the communication realm that's very difficult, it's difficult because there's two people. It's difficult because of the medium you choose. It's difficult because message sent through a text doesn't have the emotion behind it. Yeah. And so I'm sure, married?
Yes. Yep.
Married.
Yeah.
There are many times I send a text and I'm like, all of a sudden I get some, well, that was rude. And I'm like, what was rude? You can't have the inflection and the emotion in a text.
I'm terrible with that too.
Right? Yeah.
Terrible.
So that's what happens on the communication piece. And inevitably, there's this component too, where it's like, we send something out through our system. I can't make them read it. Right. And so that's the other component that's got to, very direct, saying what was in here. Let me show you where that's at. We were talking about, do you have your notifications on? Right. So getting through is, why are they not receiving the information? Right. And so I think that's always a piece. We always say communicate 7 ways, 7 times, 7 different ways, right? So that's really the important piece. And then with the operations component, using the FPCs, I am not a hover. I'm not a hovering manager. And I will say that's probably the one critique sometimes I've gotten. I've had a couple of people who've worked for me that are like, you don't like call me all the time. And I go, and I'm not going to
micromanage. Yeah.
I'm like, if you need to talk to me, then call me, right? Other than that, I'm going to teach you how to do the job. You're going to take your skill set and I'm going to continue to develop you, but I want you to do the job. And that same thing, like with Aaron, who's a new hire, when he worked for me in previous lives, he would call me a lot of times and I go, hey, and I told him the story about Alwyn Lewis. And I said, hey, bud, training wheels are off. Show me what you got. We've just put our organization into new regions, right? And the reason for that was to bring people together more in fellowship so that franchisees together can solve their problems. A lot of times they're asking questions that they know the answer to, or it's in the community. Our FAC, we've just changed the way we do our Franchise Advisory Council, and utilizing that group to be a stronger leadership and communication voice to the field has been and we just started this. But just recently, the minutes from yesterday that were going out are going to be, they're the best I've seen. Casey Schroeder, I sent him and said, hey, thank you, man. You covered everything, right? But using these representatives in each of the region as another conduit to communicate is a big key. But some of the solutions are all already there. So I want the FBCs, I said, take your training wheels are off.
Right.
Create your region. What is going to be the footprints that you leave when you get promoted, or if you decide to leave one day, you go elsewhere. What are the footprints you're going to leave in your region, right? And that's what makes the job fun then, because now you see the creativity come out. He's mentioned Aaron, and Aaron has done some things already that are just, mind-blowing in the way he's approaching some things, right? Nick, who's our most seasoned FBC, some of the stuff he's been creating to help in the FBC process has been great. He and I talked the other day about going forward, some of the things that he can, really have an impact with. And in the last 2 days, it's a new guy. And I'm happy to see it, right? I was like, man, this guy, and letting them know the value they have and the impact.
Right.
I always have the statement that I always say, you are capable of more than you know, right? Everybody is. And we accept sometimes our lot in life because of what we've been told, either as a kid or had a horrible boss. And so then we start believing the moniker that I guess I'm as good as I'm going to be. And the answer is no, you're not. The best you is still to come, right? And that's with the franchisees. So long-winded again.
No, but you're tough act to follow. But you said something in there that I think needs to be emphasized from my experience and your experience, is that the value of joining a franchise system versus trying to do it on your own is that built-in advisory board of other franchisees. And for the franchise to communicate that, to your point, is like, that's the give back. That's what you're not going to get outside of this type of system. You're going to have history, experience, validation, all that good stuff, but it's going to come from the community. And letting franchisees see that access to as the carrot, versus, well, what have you done for me lately? Well, we put together this entire community of 10 years that you can tap into to figure out how to get your model, your business, your location off the ground. So great point, though. But no one ever really articulates the invisible value of a sounding board.
Well, and I think the FBCs are also a collection point, right, of great ideas.
Right.
They're out there seeing what people are doing, and their sharing of that knowledge to other franchisees is so critical. There are people, all walks of life, right? You get some that are the frumps, and I call the frumps the right.
They'll never be happy with any of it.
Eeyore.
Yeah, exactly.
It's my
victim. Yeah,
it's a low volume restaurant, but it's my restaurant,
yes.
Right? And it's the whole tail analogy. But from that, right, teaching what is possible, right, to franchisees. I'm a big. We have this catering thing we're gonna work on, right? This is a story, and I may get a little teary-eyed because it's so personal to me. But I'm a guy that cries at grocery store opening, so I'm pretty sensitive. Okay. Not like this one. But my third restaurant that I opened, it was supposed to, I had a $1.7 million contingent liability between the personal guarantee on the lease and the loan to develop the restaurant. Mm-hmm. And everybody's like, it's going to be a $2 million restaurant, and right. And nobody forced me to sign the franchise agreement, right? I signed it, and break even was $16,000 a week, and we opened doing 10. And I ran that restaurant for seemed like my whole life, open to close. And I remember laying in bed feeling sorry for myself, and my wife, clearly the better half of me said, hey, you can sit here and feel sorry for yourself, or you can get up and do something. And I've never known you to go down without a fight. And so sure as heck, worked that doggone store. 7 months later, we're not only are we at break even, and I mean break even, 16,000, we were doing 10. I was bleeding $6,000 a week, right? And the easy thing was to give up. Because of my wife, because of the motivation, I was feeling at the time, right, horrible husband. Now I'm a horrible provider. Now I'm horrible. All these things, right, come to where you're just like, well, what's the point?
Yeah.
Pass a bottle. And lo and behold, through that, preachers, teachers, and coaches, and catering, right? So and that's my moniker for local store marketing, right? You connect with community leaders, which is preachers, teachers, and coaches, PTC. And people who will watch this podcast, that was my nickname. They go, where's PTC at?
I love it, man.
But I, in this business, and especially Clean Eatz in particular, our advantage over the other meal providers is that we are in person. The other are all through a computer where you order food. Our best assets are in our cafes,
presence,
where you build that connection, right? Yeah. That's how you beat the other guy.
3-foot game, that's what I call it.
Yeah. Right? I mean, it's, go out there and connect with people. And so the catering component is one of the things that saved me. I mean, and so as we look at the opportunity going forward for the Clean Eatz community and the franchisees, I put together, I shouldn't say I started, but then gathered it from everybody, this list of catering opportunities. And there's 35, 36 opportunities that people can go out. And to change your sales, I put together this thing of, this is the question I ask franchisees in a consult, and the FBCs, I've already told them. When you go into a store, right, or to the cafes, one of the things I always start a consultation off with to get their attention, right, to get the stage set is, how much more money would it take to put a smile on your face? So people are like, oh, I never thought about it. Well, let's think about it. 5% increase, 7% increase? What's the number? And then you get this number and you go, wow, that's an elephant. 7% on our average store is $75,600 more. When you break that down by week, by day, by hour, this elephant that is a huge number, you now realize I need 15 more guests a day to come into my cafe. If I do that alone, I can hit 75,600 people based on our ticket average. And so then you start going, wow, 15 people. Yeah, now let's break that down by the hours that we're open, right? And it becomes 1.3 people. And I'm like, okay.
It's manageable.
It's manageable, right? Same thing, you go on meal plans, right? Here's the number on meal plans weekly. Here's the number on grab and goes weekly. By the way, if you do $400 worth of catering a week, which is 225 people caterings, right? I mean, you break it down, you're like, that's 2 things a week at 25 people, right? At $10, you can get to $500 easy. But let's just make it $20, right? Or 20 people. And so you break that down, and guess what happens to these categories? Now I need 10 more people.
You start to line up vertical. Yeah.
And so putting that and then saying, okay, so now it's edible. What are the tactics? What are the programs? What are the processes you're going to put in place to go visit 2 businesses a day? On your way in and on your way home, hit 2 businesses. Stop in. When people are coming into the cafe or on Sunday to pick up their meal plans, why are we not sampling some of the great flatbreads we have? Why are we not sampling the desserts? Having them out there so that people are going, well, hell, I'm here. I might as well get lunch.
Right.
Right? So putting tactics and realizing what is possible. And then, if it doesn't work, so what? Try something else, right? You never give up. And so many times people will say, especially when it comes to local store marketing, oh, I tried that. How long did you try for? 2 weeks. 2 weeks.
Story of my life, Quinn.
Right?
No, I hear these across various brands.
This is, that is the foundation out there. Two businesses a day, and people are like, well, and this is. Do you care if I ramble a bit here?
No, this is good.
This is
this is
a great story. I was out in California. We had a franchisee that was struggling. So I got and visited him, and he said, I tried that stuff, and blah, blah, blah. And I go, look, okay. And he was trying for one of the home runs, right? Trying to get a home run. And he didn't get the home run. And I said, okay. I said, stay here. And I said, give me your business cards and some free free buffets, right? And so at the time, his center was in one of those lifestyle centers, right? A lot like Mayfair out here.
Absolutely.
But bigger.
Yeah.
There were 55 retail outlets in the center. So I started at the end, and I walked the entire center, handing out business cards in the free buffet. Hey, I'm so-and-so. Have you heard of this? No. Okay. So I get back, and there's the franchisee. Ironically, his name was Don. And I said, hey, so I just went out. And he goes, there are 55 locations out here besides yours, 56 in total. And do you realize that nobody knew there was this restaurant here until I got to 5 doors on each side of you? From that, nobody knew who the owner was until I got to your neighbors, the Subway guy and the guy over here.
Your competition. And
I go, how is that nobody knows who you are other than the 2 guys next to you? Nobody's heard of your business except the guys right here in your section of this strip. And I go, so here's what we're going to do. I went to every location, introduced myself, gave them your card and a freebie, and I told them you'd be around to go meet them. And they said, well, who's going to watch the store? If you trust me, I said, I'll run the store. You go do that, right? So sometimes it's right in your own backyard and just hitting your center. If he got one person out of each of those places to come that day, right, at a check average of 7, 55, I'm not quick on the math, times 7, but the guy's going to do $400 more a day, $2,800 more a week. And that's the difference sometimes between being break even or not, right? Or profitable or not. And so I think sometimes it's just overcomplicated, right? And that foundation, right, when you start there, you keep doing it. Everybody thinks, well, then I can stop doing this. No. You got to keep doing that. And then you layer in as you become more competent in your LSM skills, because rejection sucks, right? You go out and you try and sell a catering deal. They said, no. Okay, well, let's give up then. What the hell?
Right. It's personality.
Yeah, it is. It is a lot of that.
We spoke about it on an episode before this, and I love the whole, with the old how to eat an elephant, one bite at a, like consolidating things down to manageable objectives versus trying to look at the whole elephant. Like, there's no way I'm going to hit this. I love it, man. This is right.
Yeah, the beauty of it is we have always known that, right?
Yeah.
Yvonne and I, that came naturally to us. That's how we built the damn thing.
Yep.
But we've struggled kind of articulating that, which I think is kind of a blessing for us to have people like you in the organization now that have experience doing it, have experience teaching it, having experience leading it, and now bringing that in here to our system and re-articulating it and breaking it down, I think is what is improving that communication piece that we've been lacking for a while, because we have a tendency to be like, damn, it's so easy. Why are you not grasping this? And sometimes not everybody can. Right? The easiest things that are right there in front of you.
You're also close. I mean, Quinn,
they're just not that easy all the time.
Brings other brands to your brand now. It's like, no, hey guys, this is just how it goes. This isn't a Clean Eatz thing. This is a restaurant thing. And if you're not, you and Yvonne, you guys have been in the fire for a long time, but I'm sure the response is, well, it's easy for you to say.
Yep.
Yeah.
He's a different personality, different situations. Like, this is what everyone says.
Well, and people, make conjecture, right?
Yeah.
Anytime things aren't going right, I mean, it's tough to look in the mirror.
It sucks.
I mean, that's why I was laying in that bed that day. I was like, well, what's the point, right?
Right, yeah.
And it's easy to give up, right? It's funny, I got a call yesterday from one of the FBCs, and he told me about this opportunity. This is a store that's really struggling. and said, hey, this group had a chance to do a Meal on Wheels, right? And this store is on the brink. This will result in $18,000 more a week. A week. It is a trajectory changer. It is a course
right. That
changer,
could turn everything.
Right?
Yeah.
It goes from being in the bottom percent of the restaurant cafes to in the top, right? Overnight. And guess what they said?
Don't have time.
No. I heard that, and I'm like, you call them back and say the answer is yes. We will figure it out. If I have to take, hey, we're going to charge you for this.
Right.
But if I take the whole FBC team up there so we can help you get this thing rolling, it's the difference between, potentially on the brink to being one of the most successful turnaround stories in the history of Clean Eatz. So the FBC's called them today, and I said, see if the opportunity is still there, right? Because sometimes it's like the gift was given to you, and because the challenge was daunting, you said no, right? The answer should always be yes. Now, what's your question, right? And that's when this thing came up. I was just like, yesterday, that was late last night, and I was just like, you've got to be kidding me.
Yeah, it's an answer to a prayer.
And to your point, and I've been praying for these folks because they're good people that just got into this and thought it was going to be turnkey, open the door, and I don't have to be here. And that's not.
And that's the sentiment across franchise brands. I mean, that's not, you're 100% right. I mean, people's hearts are in the right place. I just think the reality hits home when they're like, oh, this is still someone's got to work on building this business. It's not.
Yeah.
So this is a good segue into my next question. And you can say whether it's in our brand or any others, but what do you think has been the most proven method of keeping people motivated and continuing to build trust? And we talked about trust and culture post-pandemic, because we did okay during COVID. Us as a brand, we did okay. 21, I've said this a million times here in the last few weeks. I feel like a record on repeat, but 2021 for the entire industry was an anomaly. You will never see those numbers ever again, not unless some major shit happens. And then I think in 2022, 2023, 2024, and now this year, not just in our brand, I see it across the industry with everyone I talk to. And I'm very blessed and fortunate to know some very heavy hitters in the restaurant field, meaning big leaders of bigger brands. And they all say the same thing. Like it's just a post-pandemic, almost like, you've heard of postpartum depression with mothers who have babies. That's what's going on right now in the industry. So like, in your opinion, what is some of the best ways that we can keep not only our franchisees, but other people kind of keeping owners motivated in this state of where this industry is right now?
Yeah, I think there's the first reason, honestly, is you got all your money in this, right?
That's exactly where my
That's the obvious one.
Right? I mean, that's the first thing.
You want to call the game now, or
so you put a lot of money in to make this thing, to buy this thing, and I do think, right, everything ebbs and flows. There are down periods, and when things down, and the easiest thing, rightly, is just to become negative and give up and blame others. And so I think the way is, giving them, showing them the hope, right, the path. I do, and I don't want to hammer the catering thing, too hard, but that's an avenue we have not even we brushed it, right? Mm-hmm. But if we go out and own it and conquer this, right, it gives a purpose. It gives a meaning, right? So I think through the FBC, the consult process, right, is going to be a huge thing that gets people back on track and motivated. Because in that, we start off with, hey, let's start with goals. Where is it you want to be? When I became a franchisee the first time, and I had been in the restaurant business as a VP for, 12 years at that point. And I remember it wasn't until I took over the franchise group out in Colorado. Pat Williamson, who's a bigwig in the restaurant business and is a huge mentor for me. I'll never forget. He said, hey, I want to see what the plan looks like for next year. And I was like, okay. And I put together this 4-page thing, sent it to him, and he's like, great start. I thought, start? Hell, that was the whole thing. You know?
That's
And then
the
I was like,
worst
oh,
words to
wait.
hear.
This is
I'm gonna
back.
go home and kick my cat now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, holy moly. But then I realized, PepsiCo, back to Pepsi. And I started thinking about my days at PepsiCo, right? And every year there was a plan built, budget, based on here's what the sales goals are. Here's your people, right? It was all the things, right? The people, sales and profits, right? The 3 Ps. And so, man, I went back to work and, man, we had a budget in place for every restaurant. And it was to the level, back to eating the elephant. I would say, hey, we're going to increase sales next year for the whole company 5%. Okay, where's it coming from? And I go, well, and he goes, I want it by store, how that's going to be. So it was literally analyzing by restaurant. Is there construction planned? Is there not construction planned? Did they have a bad year last year? Are they going to, so store by store, and then sitting down with the manager so they have ownership in it as well. And then on the people piece, right? People hate this, but rack and stack and going, hey, man, your average hourly wage for this store is here. If anybody down here is making more than average hourly wage, then that's an opportunity to coach them up or coach them out, right?
Yeah.
And so literally focusing on those things. And then that PBR process, right? Putting that in place where the managers now are presenting their budget. And it was actual versus budget, actual versus reported. Because sometimes it's like, hey, the issue is the way they're reporting or not reporting things. And so any variance was part of their education and learning process, right? But that's where I think as you start going through saying now, hey, man, let's set a goal, right? Because I think that's where people lose their way sometimes. It's like you wake up, it's like the old Dunkin' commercial, right? Got to make the donuts,
That's
right?
it.
Another
reference.
On.
Yeah.
And it becomes that grind where you just walk up going, oh, crap, another day in the same 4 walls. Well, yes, if you look at it that way. The other thing is now if I've achieved and put some goals in place that I'm aspiring to achieve, now it gives you new purpose and new drive. Specifically in our restaurant business, as I've gone around to our cafes, the basics again of like suggestive selling and getting your best people up front to do that, it's easy. It is the easiest thing. And we will hire people. There's an article going to be in our newsletter that's going out today, because people are reluctant to pay $2 more an hour for an employee. And sometimes it doesn't make sense. But what I have found, if you can get a person for $2 more, that then is that person up front that's the face of the organization that is now doing the suggestive selling, is converting cafe guests to meal plan guests, is converting whoever into grab and goes, right? Is selling catering. It's worth the extra $80 you're going to pay a week to get that quality individual who is the face of your brand, especially in our brand, right? But that's where I think the goal setting and having specific goals that now get them refocused off of, I got to make the donuts, to, man, now I have a purpose, right? So I think without purpose is when people, become blasé and just accept the status quo, right? And kids today, when I say kids today, I'll use my own daughter, love her to death, but she called me and was so excited. She said, Dad, I'm going back full time. And I said, what? Oh, really? She said, yeah. She goes, I'm not sure I can handle 30 hours a week, but we'll see. And I was like, did you?
That's awesome.
I said, did you say 30 hours a week? And she goes, yeah. She's like, do you work more than that? And I go, Logan. I said, Logan, I am, and I said, I'm
there by Wednesday.
Yeah, really. I mean,
the other day,
that's great.
Don's funny. The other day I was in there at 6:00. He goes, what the hell are you doing in here? I couldn't sleep, and so it was just a waste of time. I came in, I got stuff to do. Yeah. But I told my daughter, I'm like, yes, specifically in this business, right? My phone is never turned off. I take calls 24 hours. It's Christmas Eve 2 years ago, I was actually down in my office on Christmas Eve helping a franchisee who was struggling with some financing and things. And that's not a proud moment, family. So if you're watching, it's back to the, are you ever going to see one of my games? Yeah. But it's the way I'm wired, right? And so I think that's the other pieces today, realizing that my values aren't necessarily other folks' values, right? And it doesn't mean I'm right. So that 30 hours a week is like, okay, how do I get the most out of you in those 30 hours a week, right? And again, it comes back to trust. It comes back to setting the pace. I tell the FBCs in this role, your job in this role, you are the ambassadors for this brand, and you are the thermostats, not the thermometers. You set the temperature, right, for this brand, not taking the temperature. Anybody can do that, right? And I always tell people, we talk about, people, whether you need to have a college degree, right? And thermometers have degrees, and you know what we do with those, right? So it's not about that, right? It's the person and the motivation and getting them going and getting the most out of them that is what motivates them, right? That's as Don was talking about, the connection with some of the tougher franchisees, right?
Yeah.
Was, just setting the playing field and going, hey, look, here's my goal. Here's what I want to do. And the only thing I want to do is help you be successful, right? That's our common goal, right? And all I want to do is grow market share, right? People get so confused sometimes. It's not about sales, because you can increase prices and continue to have sales that are positive. Meanwhile, your transaction count's going down, right? And slowly but surely, you're going out of business.
Fight to the bottom,
right? Yeah. And so finding that common ground and understanding that the purpose is nothing but to make you successful, and taking away that edge of, why are you here? They're here to make me comply with your standards.
Compliance, yeah.
It's like, compliance isn't for us. It's not for you. It's to protect the brand. It's because what our guests expect, right? That's where people get so confused. And, you have to do this because read your franchise agreement. Well, if you go there, you failed. If it gets to that point,
that's last resort.
Like that's the last resort, right?
And then you're getting bed.
Yeah, that's the one when you afterwards you should go look in the mirror and go, man, you suck today, right? Yeah. Because it's all the thing is always about keeping this whole consult process. It's not about what Don wants or Quinn wants or any of the FBCs want. It's what our guests want.
It's the customer.
That's why we are doing what we do, right? And so making sure that renewed purpose. And I always find it's like, why did you get in this to begin with? What was it that drove you here, right? And getting that kindred spirit rekindled, is part of the challenge, but it's part of the job.
And outside of the Clean Eatz franchise family, this is good advice for any franchisee who's been in a brand for a long time. This is like the smelling salt for them to realize, man, it's difficult, but it's not as difficult as I've made it. Right. And I can control this if I just put the extra step into building presence, relationships. I love it, man. Yeah.
Well, getting to the root sometimes is very simple. Franchisee the other day was like, well, my sales are this, and I think I should close early because I don't have good people.
Right.
I think on this because I can't get good people. I can't get good people. Right. And I'm like, he goes, so that's the answer. I would like to close on a certain day. And I was like, the answer is to close. Yeah. And but the problem is you can't get good people. You see, I'm like, so why don't we focus on the problem, right? And this is where the $2 more article.
You're putting a Band-Aid on cancer.
Yeah, that's what drove me to this the article in our newsletter, because I think sometimes you get short-sighted, because the easy thing is to retract, right? Yeah. And when things aren't going right, I'm in the mode of, man, it's time to blow it out and expand. What do you got to lose, right? And that's where I say, I can't get good people. All right. Then I would go pay $4 more an hour to whoever I could get. And I would go to the places that you love and go, that person, every time I come in, is absolutely great, right? And you don't want to steal other people's employees, but the old tact of giving you your business card and going, if you know someone like you,
exactly like you,
exactly like
same
you,
name,
right?
address,
same address, and go, hey, I don't care what it takes, but for someone like you, I'm willing to pay what it takes to get someone like you, right? And that's the answer. It's not closing. It's not doing this and retracting. It's focusing on the problem. The problem is you need good people, right? I end the article, and it's a little harsh, I think. I let one of the FBCs read it. I go, not too harsh, is it? Because it was like, if you do all these things and you try all these things and they don't work, then what I would ask you is this question: would you work for you?
Honestly, I think I've had people present that to me before, consultants, leaders in other businesses? And it's a tough question, but it's
Valid.
reasonable.
Yeah.
It's completely valid. I mean, and Quinn, to your point, like, it's not just addressing the problem, but addressing it in a timely fashion. Because we see this with other brands too. It's like sometimes the avoidance of the problem gets to the point where they can't even create the solution because they're out of time.
Yeah.
So how do you step out in front of that? I mean, I can't find the right people. How long has this been going on?
I think, somebody told me, I don't know if it was Pat Williamson or who, but said, pride's a powerful thing, right? And it can be positive or it can be negative.
Yeah.
And, so many people, you can tell that when they start off, well, let me tell you what I did. Let me tell you, right? And you're like, in facing the harsh realities that you may not be good at something is uncomfortable, right? And once you can break through that, and that's why this one particular individual I've done, and let me tell you my background and all this stuff, and I'm like, I don't care.
Yeah.
Don't.
We talked about that. Yeah.
It's
great on paper.
Yeah. My brother's a plumber.
Yep.
And he's my, best friend. Well, Cheryl, you're first. Then my brother. Didn't go to college, didn't do any of that stuff. And that guy is the smartest guy I know.
And he's in a needed field.
Yeah, right. And so
Job
that's
security.
a component that is not about the degrees like we talked about earlier. And to watch him the way he works with his customers, right? He's up there explaining the nuts and bolts on these things, and but it's a shitty job. But
entertaining.
he is. He's been an unbelievable example for me to watch, in a job that's thankless, right? I mean, it's hard work, I was working with him during my days in the old folks home when I was doing arts and crafts time. And I'll never forget, we took one day, he said, hey, you want to help me tomorrow or do some gardening? I thought, wow, this would be good. Get outside. We get there, we go down these steps, and he goes, okay, you see that trench? He goes, yeah. He goes, I need you to shovel that out from here to there. And I was like,
get to the pipe.
This is the gardening? He's like, yeah. I'm like, damn it. I had this vision of being outside, but that was the reality, right? It's a digression. I apologize. But it's one of those things, right, where, most humble guy I know, working his tail off and he's successful. Why? Because of his humility, right? And that's what I think for a lot of folks sometimes it's like, man, admit that you're wrong. Admit that you could be better. Right. And if you can get past that, that opens up the door for a lot of possibilities. So
I got one more question before we wrap it up. We do this with almost every guest that we have. Quinn's hot take. This can be anything, good, bad, ugly, indifferent.
Hot take.
It's just an opinion that you hold very near and dear to yourself.
Very near and dear to myself.
Could be something you're pissed off about, you're mad about, or something that you love.
I think the sad part is there's so many things depending on the situation. But on my business card, my digital business card, you watched it, the Never Ring the Bell. That lesson for me, and it is so personal, right? That third restaurant when I thought I was going to lose everything. The easy part was to go ring the bell. And if you haven't heard it, it's the Admiral who does the graduation address at the University of Texas. And he's a Navy SEAL, right? One of the most amazing, toughest programs there is. And he talks about the lessons he learned, right? And it starts with making your bed. And he said, hey, it gets you in the habit of doing that. It gives you your first thing of the day that you've accomplished. And even if nothing else goes right, when you come home that day, you come home to a made bed, right? And then he goes through these 10 steps. Well, at SEAL training, anytime you want to get out, all you got to do is ring the bell. Get up, dust yourself off. They call them sugar cookies when they go in the ocean and roll in the sand. Mm-hmm. Take your sugar cookie self, go over and ring the bell, and you're done. The pain's over. And my God, it's also probably for those folks, I can imagine that moment in time they wish they could have back, right? Because, pain or discomfort is temporary, right? But the goal at the end, right, that you will get, you will carry forever, right? And so I think never ringing the bell is a philosophy that leads to having less regrets in your life. And so that's kind of my mantra, is that never ring the bell. If you do that, you can always say, at least I tried. I'm a movie guy, and my wife gets so mad because my son and my daughters are all, and we drop lines like at Thanksgiving, and all of a sudden the rhetoric comes back and forth, and my wife's like, "What are you talking about?" We're like, "Dumb and Dumber, Tommy Boy." Right? So we're firing these things off. So, I think there was a scene in Jack Nicholson in The One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, which used to be my favorite movie. And then as you get older, you're like, man, there's so many great ones.
Yeah.
But it's the scene when they are in the loony bin and they're in the washroom. And he bets all the guys, he's betting cigarettes, right? Because that was their currency. He says, I bet you I can pick that wash basin up. I'm going to pick it up, and I'm going to take it and throw it out through that window. And they're all like, that thing weighs 1,000 pounds. You can't do that. And he goes, get out of my way, boys. You're taking up my oxygen. And he goes over there and he tries it 3 times, can't get it. And the guy goes, I knew you couldn't do it. And he goes, see, that's the problem. You knew that, but at least I tried, damn it. At least I tried. Right?
That's beautiful.
So that's kind of that thing where it's like, hey, even if you fail, right, at least I tried. But don't ring the bell. So that's kind of my hot button.
Love it, man.
If you're not motivated from this one, guys, there's something wrong with you, man, because I'm ready to go out and run through a wall.
Well, then I've been successful today.
Yeah, bud. No, I mean, I can say personally, even it doesn't matter where you're at, whether you're a franchisee running a business or in a management leadership positions, everything you said is just on point, man. And it's needed to, we forget these lessons and principles. It's good to hear, man.
Yeah. No. Thanks for having me.
No, thank you, man. This has been great. I'm not going to blow smoke up your butt, but you've been an extreme valuable asset to the company in just the short time you've been here. I respect the hell out of you. You're doing a great many, many things within Clean Eatz right now, and looking forward to keeping it going, man. This was great. Thank you. I appreciate the time.
Appreciate it.
Thanks,
all right, guys. Till next time.